Hello fellow crafty souls, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Today's stretch project is a Mother's Day card involving some old supplies that I've not used before. So the random eBay purchase that I got around 5 years ago, some random paw print die cuts. I'll be using the Craft Perfect Dog stamp set, my favourite things paw prints dynamic set, specifically that large paw print, and today's card will be on some Neenah Solar White cardstock in the £110. So I've grabbed some distressed oxides, and I'm going to do a rainbow background for the paw prints to actually sit on. So I'll be using my Tailored Expressions blender brushes. So the first colour I'm using here is Candied Apple. And with the brushes that I'm using, I keep those separate for the Oxide inks versus any dye inks that I use. So this will actually be sitting behind the random eBay purchase cardstock paw print cover, if you like, and so I'm not too overly fussed as to how the blend goes. So the first colour was Candied Apple, then I've gone through and used the Carved Pumpkin, the yellow is Squeezed Lemonade, this green is Twisted Citron, the blue I'll be using is Peacock Feathers, and then I'll be moving into, made sure I left myself enough room for purple, and moving into Wilted Violet. So that one's one of my favourite colours. So as you can see, not an overly smooth blend going on, but once that cover plate sits over the top, it looks beautiful. So I'll be cutting out both the rainbow layer and the paw print cover with the Waffle Flower A2 layered dies. Sorry if you can hear some banging going on, that's the dogs walking up and down the hall and their tails whacking the walls. So yeah, I was really happy with how that turned out. Ran those through my die cut machine, and having a bit of a think here, and I decided I wanted to go with a black cover. So I'm using my VersaFine pigment ink in black onyx, and just using my Gina K blender brush to apply the ink. So obviously I purchased these covered, the die cuts already done. I actually thought I was buying a cover plate die itself, and this was when I first started card making, so I was very surprised when I got these little cardstock covers, and for ages I just put them aside and didn't know what to do with them. So I thought today, as part of the year of the stretch, what I'm trying to do is incorporate some more supplies that I don't generally use. And this is also a stamp set which I've used on only a couple of occasions. So I'm going through, and I've just popped some tape on my fingers just to make sure I don't get my fingers all inky, because I then have a tendency to touch everything and ruin many sheets of cardstock. So making sure that the pigment ink, it does take a little bit longer to dry, so just using my heat tool to speed the drying process. So that's coming along nicely, and I went through and actually ink blended on that twice, just to make sure, because it is a textured cardstock, that I got the black in all the spaces. So I was really happy with how that turned out. Did a little cheer, and just going to glue that cover plate directly over the rainbow. So I've seen similar techniques used with stencils, like they call it Joseph's multicolour rainbow. Gina K actually does quite a few of the black stenciling over rainbow, but I thought this would just be a nice way to use the cover plate. So I've decided to make this card actually a Mother's Day card. And I'm using the Kathy Zielski mum die, cutting it out, the shadow out in black, and the word itself in gold. And then I'm going to cut just a couple of extra layers of the mum, so I'll make that mum 3 layers thick. And just using my little Altenew mini blossom die cut machine. This is great for just the little die cuts that you have, and you don't want to have to lug the big die cut machine in and out of space too often. I'm sure I'm going to do a rotator cuff in my shoulder or something every time I try and pick up my die cut machine to bring it onto the desk to die cut, because I don't actually have a dedicated space. I've got a very narrow workspace, as many crafters can attest to, trying to fit their craft rooms into minimal spaces. So I've cut my 3 layers, and this is just the shadow that I've cut. So I'll get in and glue those together. And I love my little precision tip mini bottle. I just fill it up with my favourite glue that I like to use, which is one that I get from Spotlight, just a craft tacky glue. For those of you playing here in Australia, it's a great craft haberdashery store. Can get really lost in and spend a lot of time and money in there. So just getting in and trying to line all the bits up. And yeah, I got my nails done. I just recently went away on a trip with my husband, and coming to the end of my long service leave, just had the last month off, so I thought as a treat I'll go and get my nails done. And trying to craft with nails when you're not used to them, it's not fun. Trying to pick things up, especially dies off a glass top mat, can be quite difficult. So the glue, I'm just using my craft knife just to tidy it up a little bit. So I'm popping the sentiment against the cover, and the shadow actually gets lost in the background. So I decided I was going to mount the mum word onto the gold paw print, and again I'll just layer that up with 2 layers behind, and then put the gold layer on top. So all my gold cardstock and my random bits of white, I've got a just like a container, unorganized at the moment, but it will get there, with just all my random cardstock scraps. So I'm learning to actually rummage through that first to pull out if I'm doing any small die cutting. So here I'm just layering up the dies, and yeah, see my struggle to try and pick it up, eventually just sliding it off the edge of my craft mat. And I got misaligned a little bit with the paw prints, so as my son likes to refer to them as the toe beans of the dog. Yes. So now I'm just layering up the gold pieces, and yeah, so that'll sit up nice and dimensional up off the front cover. And then there's the extra dimension with the mum word as well. So your Mother's Day's coming up the 12th of May here in Australia, so I thought it might be nice just to put together a bit of a dog card for the dog mums out there that may not necessarily have kids, or they do have kids and it's from the dogs, or yeah, just something a little bit quirky. I'm definitely a dog mum. So what I've done here, sorry, just back to the card, what I've done here is I put the template of the paw print onto the front of the card, just so I can lay all the bits in. the toe beans and then the paw pad itself, and that will allow it to actually look like it's meant to. So just peeling that off carefully, because I have a tendency to stick these down and then rip them off again. So now you can see that the mum does stand out that little bit more, and just using my T-square ruler so I can get that all straight, because yeah, my eyeballs are often crooked. So I'm happy with that. And now I'm going to stamp the inside of the card, and I'm going to use I rough you, and then there's another one, another sentiment I also use as well. It says you are perfect. So just lining those up, and just using the little lines on the lid of my Misty just to try and get it straight, because yes, my eyes are crooked and trying to eyeball it straight, it doesn't help. So with the inside of my cards, I like to stamp with the Memento Tuxedo black ink. For the simple fact is it dries really quickly, and I have a tendency to shut my cards and get the ink on the inside cover of the card. So I'm happy with how that's turned out, and glue that down to the front of my card. And beautiful. Nice and simple for me. Having a bit of a think, and it needs some more sparkles. So I used my Nouveau what are they? The Nouveau Aqua Shimmer pens in glitter gloss. There. And just to be aware that if you are using the Aqua Shimmer pen on your Distress Oxide inks, they will actually, the glitter gloss will actually activate the Distress Oxides, and you will pick it up. So just in between each row, what I'm actually doing is just scribbling it off quickly, just to make sure that I'm not carrying colour from one row to the next. So once I've finished this row, this will be the card pretty much finished. Well, it will be finished. So that's done. Really happy with how that one turned out. Thank you for joining me today. Don't forget to like and subscribe.